Let's say your paycheck arrives. You open your banking app, look at the number, and for a moment, everything feels fine. But then the spending starts. Rent, groceries, a couple subscriptions. Maybe you grab takeout a few times during the week, and before you know it, the money is basically gone. Then you see financial advice online saying things like, just budget better, track every dollar, cut your spending. Which sounds great in theory, but in reality, most people try budgeting for about 3 days before giving up because detailed budgets can feel exhausting. You have to track everything, categorize everything, think about every purchase. And honestly, most people don't have the patience for that. So, I started wondering, is there a simpler system that actually works? That's when I decided to test something called the 50-30-20 rule for 30 days. And the results were honestly pretty surprising. My name is James Harrington. If you're someone who feels like budgeting never works for you, or your money just disappears every month, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Alright, first, let's talk about what the 50-30-20 rule actually is, because despite the complicated name, the concept is incredibly simple. Your income gets divided into 3 categories: 50% for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for saving and investing. That's it. No complicated spreadsheets, no tracking 40 different expense categories, just 3 buckets. Now here's the idea behind it. Needs are the things you must pay for to live. Rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, transportation, insurance. Then you have wants, restaurants, entertainment, shopping, travel. Basically, the things that make life enjoyable, but aren't essential. And finally, the last 20% goes towards saving, investing, or paying down debt. Now, before I tried the system, I was skeptical because financial advice online tends to sound great, but often falls apart in real life. But I wanted to test it honestly. So, let's walk through the numbers. Imagine someone earns $4,000 per month after taxes. Using the 50-30-20 rule, the budget would look like this: $2,000 for needs, $1,200 for wants, $800 for saving and investing. Simple, clear, no guesswork. Now here's the thing. When I first looked at my spending, it didn't look anything like that. And this is where it gets really interesting. Most people assume their biggest expenses are things like rent or groceries. But research from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that discretionary spending, things like dining out, subscriptions, and entertainment, can quietly take up a huge portion of income. And the problem is, those expenses feel small individually, but together they add up quickly. For example, $15 lunch here, $20 subscription there, $30 dinner delivery. Do that several times a week and suddenly you're spending hundreds of dollars without noticing. So for the next 30 days, I followed the 50-30-20 rule as closely as possible. And here's what happened. The first thing I noticed was awareness. Not strict budgeting, just awareness. Because once you know you have a fixed amount for wants, your brain naturally starts prioritizing. Instead of mindlessly spending, you start asking simple questions like, do I actually want this more than something else later this week? And that small shift changes behavior dramatically. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Jack, but what if my needs already take up more than 50% of my income? That's a great question because for many people, especially in expensive cities, housing alone can exceed that limit. And the truth is, the 50-30-20 rule isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be a guideline. Even adjusting to something like 60-20-20 can still dramatically improve financial structure. The goal is balance, not perfection. Now, let's talk about the most interesting part of the experiment, the 20% saving rule, because this is where the math becomes powerful. Let's go back to that $4,000 monthly income. Saving 20% means $800 per month. That equals $9,600 per year. Now imagine investing that money with an average return of 8% per year. After 20 years, that grows to roughly $450,000. And remember, that's not from winning the lottery. That's simply from consistent saving and investing. This is where it gets really interesting. Most people don't fail financially because they make bad investments. They fail because they never create space to invest in the first place. But here's the psychological insight I didn't expect. The 50-30-20 rule actually made spending less stressful because instead of constantly feeling guilty about buying things, I knew exactly what was allowed. If something came from the wants category, it was already planned for. No guilt, no stress, just intentional spending. Let me give you a simple analogy. Most people treat money like a messy closet. Everything gets thrown inside randomly and eventually becomes impossible to find anything. The 50-30-20 rule works like 3 simple shelves: needs, wants, savings. Suddenly, everything has a place and financial chaos becomes much easier to manage. Now, here's what most people don't realize. The real power of this system isn't the percentages. It's the clarity. Because when financial decisions become clear, behavior improves automatically. You don't need constant discipline. The structure does the work for you. After 30 days of following this rule, 3 things changed. First, I became far more aware of my spending habits. Second, saving money felt automatic rather than difficult. And third, financial decisions became significantly less stressful, which honestly might be the most valuable benefit of all. Now, is the 50-30-20 rule perfect? No. But it's far better than having no system at all, because the biggest financial mistake people make isn't overspending, it's operating without any clear structure. So, if you want to try this yourself, here's a simple starting point. Calculate your monthly income. Divide it into the 3 categories. Then track your spending for the next 30 days. You might be surprised by what you discover, because once you give your money a simple structure, something powerful happens. You stop wondering where your money went, and you start deciding exactly where it should go. If you found this experiment interesting, make sure to hit subscribe. And I'm curious about something. Do you currently follow any budgeting system, or do you mostly just spend and hope it works out? Let me know in the comments, because sometimes improving your finances doesn't require complicated strategies. Sometimes it just requires one simple rule applied consistently. Before you go, if you're serious about improving your finances, don't stop here. Watch a few more videos on easy finance, because one small financial lesson can completely change the way you save, spend, and invest. Your future self will thank you.